Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the south side of Chicago. Welcome to the 17th Ward. Welcome to the Auburn, Gresham community area. We are excited today because the mayor is keeping her commitment. This administration is keeping their commitment to what we talked about from the first day that she ran, and that's developing the south and the west sides of Chicago. I've been in numerous conversations with the mayor, and before I say anything, she's always talking about building the south and west sides of Chicago. And so we stand here on a site, across the street is a site that will be developing in our community, but not only here, but along in Inglewood, along on the west side of Chicago. And so as Invest Southwest is the thing that's going to change not only our community, but the many lives of our residents. So I'm excited and I'm honored to introduce our mayor who's keeping her word and building the south and west sides, Mayor Laurie Lightfoot. You all make some noise for her.
So, thank you, Alderman Moore. I appreciate that very warm introduction. Before we get into the reason why we're here, I want to share with you where I'm at with the violence that we're seeing in our city. The last 2 Mondays, I've woken up with an incredible sense of dread, incredible feeling of despair because of the weekend violence. You know, I see it unfolding in emails and text messages and media reports. And these last 2 weekends have been some of the deadliest that we've seen in our city in a very long time. It's bad enough that we're seeing people shooting and we're seeing violence in places that we really haven't talked about in a number of years. It's happening all over the city. But what causes me the greatest heartache as a mayor, as a mother, just as a human being, is seeing our babies being killed. 1-year-old, 17-year-old, 3-year-old, a 10-year-old. This can't be who we are as a city. My friend Father Mike has spoken eloquently for way too many years on this topic because it's been necessary for way too many years. And one of the things that he said that struck me and stays with me is every single one of these deaths means that we are burying our future. We are burying people whose talents we barely even had an opportunity to tap into, who have not had the opportunity to live out their God-given talent. No, make no mistake, as a person of faith, I know that the Lord has called these young people home. But dear God, and dear Chicago, we have to do better than what we're seeing. There's no simple answers, no simple solutions. Part of it is what we're here to announce today, is making investments. But fundamentally, what we have to be about, each of us. It's not enough for a mayor or a police superintendent or a city government. Each of us has to ask ourselves, what more can we do every single day in our lives to wrap our arms around these children? And I don't mean just the victims, I mean the shooters as well. What do we need to do to reach them, to give them hope and love, and have them recognize the sanctity of human life? These aren't strangers who are coming into our communities. We all know that. There are people who grew up amongst us and have literally taken things into their own hands. We need to do a better job of letting them see a life that doesn't end and start at the barrel of a gun. We have to do better, every single one of us. I'm committed. I know these folks are committed. I need every Chicagoan to have the same sense of urgency around this issue, because if we fail, we all fail. We rise and fall together. This is not just a problem for the West Side or the South Side. This is a Chicago problem, and we have to have a Chicago answer. We have to let our brothers and sisters in neighborhoods who are under siege know that we see them, we hear them, and we are there for them. It's not enough anymore to just say thoughts and prayers. We've got to change our actions and our attitudes and our conduct. This violence is ripping us apart. And we've got to give everyone in every community a sense of hope, a sense that we have not abandoned them. As the saying goes, we cannot pass them by. We have to stop and be the gentle soul and neighbors for our brothers and sisters across this city who are struggling. There's no easy answer. There's no simple solution. This takes a holistic approach. I am grateful for the partnerships that we've established. Just this past Friday, I convened a meeting with the state's attorney, Chief Judge Evans, presiding Judge Leroy Martin, and the superintendent, and we talked about how we can do a better job of collaborating, and I'm committed to that, and I'm grateful for their partnership. But we also need community-based organization, people on the block, to step up. Everybody has to do their part. This can't be something that's solved by CPD alone. We know that strategy doesn't work. And we need to commit to each other as human beings around the sanctity of life, around the protection of our children. We have to do that, and we have to do it now. Let me turn to why we're here today. This is an exciting announcement for Auburn Gresham, but also for the West Side. I want to give a good thanks to Alderman David Moore for his kind words earlier, and as well as his fierce advocacy for his community. Alderman, thank you so much. And I'd also like to acknowledge the other officials who are standing with us today, starting with Alderman Jason Irvin, who is a stalwart on the West Side and chairman of the Black Caucus. I want to also recognize State Senator Jackie Collins and State Representative Mary Flowers, who are also speaking up and doing their part for us in Springfield. I'd also like to give thanks to our Commissioner of the Department of Planning and Development, Maurice Cox, for his leadership on this important issue. I want to also recognize Cindy Molis, who's here on behalf of the Pritzker Traubert Foundation, for her and their commitment to our city. And there are two other people that I must recognize. Sometimes people who are in the vineyard doing the work don't always get the recognition that they deserve. But these two people, they really have earned our praise, our support, and our love. And that's Carlos Nelson, CEO of Greater Auburn Gresham Community Development Corporation. So apparently you brought your cheering section. That's all right, that's good stuff. And last but not least, I want to give a shout out to Mount Sinai CEO Karen Teitelbaum. Mount Sinai is a tremendous partner in our work on so many levels, on healthcare, on closing healthcare disparities, and making sure that they are taking care of the young men, and mostly young men, that show up in their ERs every day and every weekend as a result of the epidemic of gun violence that we're fighting. Thank you, Karen, and thanks to the whole Mount Sinai team. Earlier this month, when I announced the $1.3 billion our city would be receiving from the CARES Act, I said that those resources would be used to support our ongoing response to COVID-19. But also importantly, that support would be about more than just COVID-19 itself, and would stand as our latest recommitment to communities. Our latest step in our shared mission that began 12 months ago to bring real investment to all of our 77 neighborhoods, not just the downtown and the north side. And to build a Chicago where everyone has an equal chance at a future and an equal chance to succeed. It's that mission and that message that has carried us here today and to this very exciting announcement. Thanks to funding from the CARES Act, we will be delivering $11 million to 2 critical developments in Invest Southwest neighborhoods. The first is right here in Auburn, Gresham, with the Auburn Gresham Healthy Lifestyle Hub. And the second is a few miles away in North Lawndale for Mount Sinai's new surgical and ambulatory care center. Both great institutions, both community-focused and community-led, both Chicago Prize finalists, and both of which will serve the healthcare deserts in these and surrounding communities. And in so doing, help address the outrageous discrepancies in everything from life expectancy, chronic health conditions, and more. And we'll have more to say on those issues soon. All of which played major roles in the COVID-19 crisis, which our city is still grappling with, and its disproportionate impact on neighborhoods like Auburn Gresham. I also want to take this moment to point out that our investment will be making use of land previously owned by the Chicago Housing Authority. Meanwhile, one of the tenants in our development in Auburn Gresham is Mickey's Retro Grill, which is a past NOF Opportunity Fund recipient. That's important because the only way we make Invest Southwest a success is by continuing to concentrate our dollars while bringing in private dollars where it matters and where it moves the needle. We talked about Invest Southwest having a catalytic effect on investment and changing the trajectory of the neighborhoods. That's what we mean, and that's what this does. Seeing these efforts and others like the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team initiative all come together shows how this work, when focused and concentrated, can be truly transformational. I want to give this moment of praise to Cindy and her team at the Pritzker Traubert Foundation. I want to thank Brian and Penny for the visionary Chicago Prize initiative, which encourages exactly these kinds of investments we all need to see here and across our city. So thank you again. We need investments that bring a well-deserved spotlight to neighborhoods like Auburn Gresham and North Lawndale, and that catalyze and inspire more investments from others that will serve more community anchors. We've obviously been through a lot together recently, and we will continue to go through a lot together recently. All of our fates are intertwined. We must think of ourselves as each other's business and each other's neighbors. The events of the past few months have been hard on all of us. But if it's taught us anything, it's the huge importance of work we're doing to dismantle the system of racism and inequality that has created the generational chasms of access and opportunity and hope within our city. What I also said when I announced the CARES Act funding is that the good news is we aren't starting from zero. Over the past 12 months, we have made key gains in our mission through investments in affordable housing, homelessness, mental health, and violence prevention. Through key reforms like those to pare back the city's addiction to fines and fees that were supported on the backs of poor people and were driving them even further into debt and even bankruptcy. These reforms we are doing are all intended to support working families and individuals, to give people love and support and hope that's necessary to build vibrant, healthy communities. And I just want to also give a shout out to my team, who have been working tirelessly for 4 months, many times without a single day's break. Through our Invest Southwest program, we will continue to focus like a laser beam on delivering the resources that are necessary to change not only the economic fortunes of neighborhoods, but the lives of the people in those neighborhoods. Even through this crisis, we have been focused and we will continue to deliver. Because at its core, the mission of Invest Southwest is about addressing the very structural inequities in our neighborhoods. All of which is to say that we haven't lost focus, and in fact, we are even more resolved and committed more than ever because the need remains just as great, if not more so, through COVID-19 and the economic hardships that accompanied it. Over the course of this week, we'll be delivering more announcements about investments we're making in neighborhoods through Invest Southwest. In addition to today's news, we'll be including things like transportation improvements, parks improvements, opportunities for local artists, and more. As I've said before, we've all been through a lot as a city, and what I'm feeling right here, right now, is mixed, I'll be honest. I am despairing because of the violence, but I'm also equally hopeful because of people that are in these neighborhoods who every single day, despite the challenges, stand up and do the Lord's work to make sure that they are building healthy and safe communities. And I am grateful for that. When I get down, I think about the people that I've seen, that I know that are out there every single day, working their tails off in difficult circumstances, but who remain committed to their neighborhoods, to the city, and that gives me inspiration and all who see it to continue doing what we need to do to bring more equity, more inclusivity, and more hope to our neighborhoods. God bless all of you who are working so very hard. And now it's my pleasure to invite Commissioner Cox to the stand. I said to the stand like a lawyer, to the podium.
Before Commissioner Cox comes, thank you. You guys can make some noise for the mayor again for this. The mayor ran off a lot of our leaders that's on the ground here working, including Senator Collins and State Representative Mayor Flowers and Carlos Nelson. But the foundation of this Auburn Gresham community is its Block Club presidents and us helping maintain those Block Clubs. I want my Block Club presidents to stand up, let people see you, because it's you that help make a difference in our community. The other thing that helps Auburn Gresham thrive and strive is Leo High School and the leadership of their principal, Shaka Rawls. Right now, they have a waiting list of great young men that you all will see lined up on those fences. Look at those pictures before you leave here. That's our future. That's the best of our youth. And then that other piece is none other than my friend, Reverend Father Flager, who we worked together for many years and continue to work together in the St. Sabina community to make Auburn Gresham a strong community. And so as we do that, we look forward to working with this administration and the leadership of our Commissioner, Michael Cox. Please come before us. Thank you.
I know what you meant. That was Maurice Cox. Well, thank you all for gathering today. But, firstly, I just want to thank our mayor one more time for her incredible, tenacious, steady leadership through this period. It's been an inspiration every day, and the nation is watching, so just thank you, Mayor. I also just want to take a few minutes to update you on Invest Southwest, and specifically how it ties into some of the long-term systemic issues that the mayor addressed, and how this type of coordinated economic development will address them and give young people hope, give people who have been working in these communities for a very long time some tangible evidence that the future can be very, very different. So last fall, we launched Invest Southwest, and we purposefully decided to start at the front door of these neighborhoods so that you would not be able to pass through Auburn, Gresham and not see the revitalization as you work your way to your home. And we committed to doing that in 10 different geographies, always at the same place, on those commercial corridors, with all that traffic passing by, so everyone who passes these buildings and starts to see these sites revitalized understands that change is possible and it's happening right here. We've been working since that announcement with the planning department, with the sister agencies, with community stakeholders to try to marshal public and private and philanthropic investment all in the same geography, which is a very, very different strategy than we've had in the past. So yes, we're here to celebrate a building that will be rehabbed and have an important community use. Same thing on Ogden in North Lawndale, but we're also 2 blocks away from another investment at the metro station that Senator Collins has been working on for years. And understand, just this afternoon, we will be doing a workshop with other community stakeholders to look at every available publicly owned property and imagine what the future of that should be so that we can support the work of GAG-DC. So the transit is an important piece. The quality of the pedestrian realm is an important piece, but also the financial support that we can provide is a key piece of this. And it's also the small businesses that we want to populate all of these storefronts, like the Brewery Coffee and Customs here on 79th Street. They were a recipient of the Small Business Improvement Fund, and we want to see more and more locally owned businesses serving locally on these corridors. So as the spring happened and the conversation turned to the kind of pressing issues that COVID-19 forced us to turn our attention to, we were looking for what projects that were already in the pipeline that would speak directly to the concerns that we were hearing in the community around community health. And this is when the 2 projects that we're here to celebrate today came into very, very sharp focus. And I would just say that the mayor's approach to cross-disciplinary thinking, we had every 2 weeks, departments across City Hall were meeting and comparing notes so that when this opportunity to lift up these 2 projects with CARES Act funding came, we already knew the project, we already knew the folks on the ground, we already knew the gap, and this helped us to zero in immediately on the opportunity that this represents. I would also have to say that the Pritzker Trubet Foundation and their work with the Chicago Prize went a very long way to helping us understand that these were the 2 projects that were of this time. of this moment, and we could leverage their work with those groups' work to kick off the first really strategic investments of Invest Southwest. So I am thrilled that $4 million will go to the Auburn Gresham Healthy Lifestyle Hub. And I will tell you, I will remember the day when I met Carlos Nelson and his staff, and I walked into their conference room, and they already had renderings of what they wanted to do on 79th Street. And the question was, how can we help? I told you we were going to help. I didn't know how it was going to come, but here we are today with $4 million to get them across the finish line and get this important piece done. And likewise, Alderman Irving, he and I have talked at length about where do we start the revitalization in North Lawndale. I don't think we knew at the time that it would be this was the seed, but I am so thrilled that $7 million are going to go to the North Lawndale Surgical and Ambulatory Center on Ogden Avenue to help us jumpstart the revitalization of Ogden Avenue. So these are vitally important, and I just am so pleased that our partners understood the absolutely foundational role that community health will play, that the mayor's office decided that CARES Act would not only go to immediate health-related needs, but long-term sustainable health needs. This Healthy Hub will be here decades to come. And that's what we're looking for. We also, the fact that it's owned by a Black development corporation that will be here for as long as the work is to be done, it's a way for us to increase Black wealth in a neighborhood that we care so dearly about. So I just want to thank you all for being the foundation of the Invest Southwest strategy. So I want to, do I get to introduce anyone? All right, so my task here really is to shine a spotlight on one of Auburn Gresham's heroes, who I have enjoyed working with. He is going to make a fundamental difference in this community. So won't you all welcome Carlos Nelson to the podium.
Greetings, friends, colleagues, and neighbors. You can see the smile emanating from my body, I'm sure. This announcement is so exciting for Auburn Gresham. Mayor Lightfoot committed to investing in long marginalized communities, and here is Invest Southwest along with this announcement. I want to say thank you, Mayor, for being a person of your word. Commissioner Cox reflected on a visit that I wanted to speak on. He and Deputy Mayor Samir Mayakar came to Auburn Gresham during the commissioner's very first week. They assessed the landscape, they read our quality of life plans, they looked me in my eyes and said, we are going to make this happen. All of that feels like years ago. So thank you for being men of your word. But there is much more work to be done, not just to complete what will be a catalytic project anchoring 79th Street, bringing hope, light, healthcare, and economic injection to Auburn Gresham, but also there is more to be done in our South and West Side communities. Our Chicago Prize sister project is a fascinating and transformative $36 million anaerobic digester planned for 650 West 83rd Street, right around the corner, by Green Era Development, led by Erica Allen and Jason Feldman. This must happen. So as I prepared for today, I thought about what does systemic and structural racism mean? What does it look like? So we have Auburn Gresham, a densely populated bungalow belt community with a large percentage of homeowners, where the city's very first Southside Irish Parade was hosted for years, right here on West 79th Street. Employment opportunities and access to employment were abundant. This community was anchored by a great all-boys high school, Leo Catholic High School, and a neighborhood high school, Calumet High School, which is no longer available, no longer here for our kids. We had a train station right here at 78th and Fielding on the Rock Island right-of-way, where Senator Collins has fought to raise $20 million almost single-handedly for a new Metro Auburn Park station starting construction later this year. We had every type of store. We had Frank's. Everyone remembers Frank's. It was actually right there, right? We had Frank's. We had entertainment venues, everything within walking distance. This was a classic Chicago community, a walkable community. Then, as my family moved in and other black families moved to Auburn Gresham, redlining and other discriminatory practices attempted to derail our dreams for the American dream. The phenomenon that sociologists call white flight took over, with a mass exodus of 60,000 plus white residents. We lost businesses, we lost investment, we lost our train station at 78th and Fielding, the same one that Senator Collins has fought hard to get capital to bring back. This disinvestment was rampant, has been rampant. Buildings became derelict and were demolished. Other buildings sat vacant for years. This is what systemic and structural racism would do. We're standing on the representation of systemic and structural racism. For generations, our families, our children, every graduating class from Leo High School, Oglesby Elementary, right up the alley here, up the block, Westcott and others, have moved through our community with vacant lots and vacant buildings as the backdrop of our existence. Right along 79th Street, the busiest bus line in the entire city of Chicago. That's what systemic and structural racism looks like. It is shameful that in one of the greatest cities in the world, and at an historic, busy intersection like 79th and Halsted, the only vibrant business is a liquor store. So I want to take a moment to pay tribute and honor those trailblazers who have invested and not left, like Cam Beard, like Ira and Camille Wesley, like Betty Jo Swanson, like Granville and Juanita Love, like James Drake, like Shirley Bryant, like the Brewers, like the Smith family of New Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church, like Hubert Newkirk and his wife, for not giving up, for my family, and so many more. I want to also say thank you to Father Mike for fighting the fight in Auburn Gresham since the 1970s and keeping yeah, I said since the 1970s. That means he's been around a while. And keeping St. Sabina from closing, unlike most of the other parishes, like St. Leo's Parish, which is where my grandparents visited, right on the other side of the CVS, like Little Flower, right west of here. Those parishes left. I say thank you to Dan McGrath and Leo High School for not fleeing Auburn Gresham, and then hiring a dynamic young principal who has already increased Leo's enrollment by more than 50%, and Leo continues to rise. The discriminatory practices still persist and have robbed many of us, homeowners and business owners, of our wealth, but not our passion. This Auburn Gresham Healthy Lifestyle and Technology Hub, right across the street, a full city block, will be anchored by a full-service health and wellness center, providing much-needed health care, health education, oral health, and mental health services to a health desert, where, as the mayor mentioned, the very first COVID-19 related death in the state occurred and where the disease has had a disproportionate impact. It will also have a sit-down restaurant with vegan and vegetarian options. In fact, there's samples right here from Mickey's Retro Grill, a green renewable roof, and a digital community center where Mr. Glenn's ACT Prep Chicago, one of the top 3 rated in Google, on Google, will continue to tutor future leaders from all over Chicagoland. I want to thank our health provider partner, UI Health, who has worked with GAGDC for years operating our AG school-based health center. I also want to thank Friend Health, who has been a great partner with GAGDC on the mayor's racial equity rapid response team to stand up a no-cost COVID-19 testing site at 79th and Racine. And though there is still much work to be done, I want to say thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, and we look forward to having you at the ribbon cutting, and acknowledgments to this young man right here and the other city council members that represent Auburn Gresham. Alderman Howard Brookins of the 21st Ward, 1 block south. Alderman Rod Sawyer of the 6th Ward, a few blocks east. Alderman Derek Curtis of the 18th Ward to the west. And this young man right here in the 17th Ward, Alderman David Moore. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
As you all see, there's a lot. So we want to thank the mayor for doing what she do. But every community, we're just not in a silo. I travel to the west side. Many of us do. And all these communities matter. So I want to bring up my colleague, Chairman of the Black Caucus, Alderman Jason Irvin. You all make some noise for him, please.
Thank you, Alderman Moore. Thank you for allowing me to get off the Dan Ryan at 79th without problem. But again, we're one Chicago working together. The importance of what we're announcing here today, not only here in Auburn Gresham, but also in the community of North Lawndale. Mount Sinai Hospital is an anchor in North Lawndale. Believe it or not, it is the largest employer of individuals, not only in the 28th Ward, but primarily on the west side of Chicago, and is one of 2 in the 2-block radius between it and Center Space Film Studios, hire a number of people in our community. So the importance of Sinai from an economic development standpoint is great. And so we want to thank Karen Teitelbaum and her team for working through this. This is actually a project that actually predates both of us, as myself as Alderman and her as CEO of Sinai Health System, as we continue to think about ways that we can improve the quality of life and the quality of health of residents on the west side of Chicago. So we want to thank not only the mayor, but thank her team for thinking about North Lawndale. I'm actually a child of North Lawndale. My parents grew up in North Lawndale, so the familiarity of Sinai and what it means to North Lawndale is never forgotten. So with that, we just want to say thank you, and again, thank you to my colleague, and thank you to the mayor of our great city for utilizing the CARES Act money in such a way to have an impact beyond just health, but have an impact on the daily lives of the citizens that we all represent. Thank you, and God bless you.
And just to show you all how this comes full circle, Karen Teitelbaum, we are no strangers to one another. As she is the CEO of Mount Sinai, many of you, some of you know and many of you don't know, that Holy Cross, which is in the 17th Ward on 65th and California in the Chicago Lawn community, is operated by Mount Sinai. And they have built a great behavioral health science center, behavioral health center there. And so what they do over the west side also impacts what happens over here on the south side. So without further ado, I want to bring up CEO of Mount Sinai, Ms. Karen Teitelbaum.
Thank you so much. What an exciting day. And I did make a note to myself, never follow Carlos. He's a tough act to follow. So I'd like to start by, of course, first of all, thanking Mayor Lightfoot, Alderman Irvin, Alderman Scott, Commissioner Cox, and the entire City Council. What a fantastic investment on the west side. It's truly going to be transformative. I'd like to also thank our project partners in the Ogden Commons project, Habitat Company, Cinespace, Chicago Film Studios, and of course the Chicago Housing Authority. You know, Sinai's been around for actually 100 years. Last year was our 100th anniversary. And for 100 years, we've been doing the same mission, serving the underserved in these very, very vulnerable communities. And as has been noted, these communities have a terrible, unconscionable, disproportionate burden of illness and challenges. And so Sinai's always been addressing disparities, and we do it through, we don't do it by ourselves. I think that these two projects and the many others that are part of the Pritzker-Traubert Foundation Chicago Prize, and thank you so much for allowing us to be part of that. We do it through innovation. We look at creative partnerships with the community, and in fact with the Chicago Prize, our partners are North Lawndale Community Coordinating Council. We do it through investment. Sinai Health System invests in housing and workforce development, so critical to good health. And we do it in inclusion because we really believe our communities deserve the same chances at good health and good social work services that any other community deserves. And we, thank you. And we've talked about COVID and how that pandemic really, and we're still going on, and again, I've got to just say thank you to the mayor and to our governor for the strong actions they've taken. But COVID really shone a light on racial disparities, and in such a, again, unforgivable, compelling way. I will tell you that disparities is something that Sinai Health System knows well. The COVID patients that came to Sinai Health System had an overwhelming proportion of disease such as chronic disease like diabetes and respiratory health and obesity. And we know that that contributes to mortality. So at Sinai, the fatalities for the COVID patients were 18.8%. The rest of the city, by contrast, was 4.5%. So we have to be together in addressing these disparities. There's just no other way. We also have, in addition to a much higher proportion of diabetes, we have post-traumatic stress disorder. 1 in 4 people in our communities report post-traumatic stress disorder, pretty much stemming from all the violence that we see, and the mayor's talked about that. We have 3 times the unemployment in our communities as the rest of Chicago. And we all know that a lack of ready access to good quality health care is simply a barrier to a vital community. So the Ogden Commons project is going to enable Sinai Health System and our partners to foster enhanced equity and to address access. It's also bringing, it's very exciting, it's 500, not only is it just healthcare services, that's a big piece of it, but it's bringing 500 new units of mixed income housing. It's bringing jobs to that community. It's bringing commercial. We now have 3 restaurants lined up. We have a bank. There's no bank in our immediate Ogden community. And it's on 11 acres fronting Ogden. And what it's replacing are vacant lots. So we are so excited about that. And we're also going to have retail there. And so for Sinai Health System at Ogden Commons, this is going to allow us to address the health disparities by enabling us to increase access to much needed surgical services. We're also having a renal dialysis center that's going to expand. We're the only organization in the city that runs 4 shifts for our renal dialysis center because that reflects the need in the community because of the disproportionate burden of kidney disease. We're also going to have a digestive health center there in addition to a number of other services that are needed by the community. And we work with our community partners in the quality of life plan. That we do not do anything on our own. We have a community advisory council and they're going to be with us every step of the way. So we're at a pivotal point, and for me, Sinai at Ogden Commons is not about bricks and mortar. Anybody who thinks that is just missing the point. Sinai at Ogden Commons is really going to allow us to address these disparities in a much much better way than we're able to without this building. It increases capacity, it increases efficiency, and for our community members, it's health care right in the community. No need to take public transportation to get that health care. And we always say at Sinai, there can't be two levels of good health. One if you happen to live on the Gold Coast or River North, and another if you happen to live just 6 scant miles west. That is unacceptable. So we are so grateful for this investment, and I just want to thank the mayor, the city council, Alderman Irvin, Commissioner Cox one more time. Thank you for investing in Sinai. More importantly, thank you for investing in the health and the vibrancy of our community.
I want to make one last set of comments before I take questions and answers. This morning, the Tribune editorial board urged me to be more collaborative with President Trump. And surely those well-meaning people cannot be that naive. President Trump's attention to Chicago is transparently political. But, all right, I'll play along this one time. And here's what I would say to President Trump that could actually be really helpful in Chicago. First of all, apropos of our announcement today, stop trying to kill off the Affordable Care Act. Millions of people across our country remain unable to access affordable, high-quality health care. Obamacare makes a difference and is a lifeline. Please, Mr. President, stop trying to sever it and push for Medicaid expansion in those states that haven't bothered to do it to help their residents. And while we're at it, use federal dollars to actually build affordable housing. There are too many people in our city, in our state, in our country that don't have a place to lay their head permanently every night, and we need to solve this problem with federal dollars. How about supporting the reinstatement of the Voting Rights Act? And stop supporting efforts across the South and in other Republican-led states to cut access to the ballot. The images that we've seen across the country in recent weeks of places that shut down voting and polling places. So there's one place in a single county that literally thousands of people have to gather in, wait in long lines in the midst of this pandemic, and then have judges have to order those polling places to remain open. Mr. President, you could help solve that problem if you chose to. Stop doing injury and harm to our immigrant and refugee communities. Every individual, every child adds value. All their lives also matter. And instead of treating them try treating them with humanity and compassion. Instead, you've called them everything but a child of God, and you've scapegoated them. Please stop and show some respect. And since we're talking about respect, also stop demonizing members of the LGBTQ+ community, of which I am a proud member, and particularly our brothers and sisters in the trans community who you seem to have a particular obsession with. Our rights also matter. We need support in our community. Stop demonizing us. And of course, we could use more resources. Support the CARES Act, support the HEROES Act, and whatever happened to that infrastructure bill that you promised to deliver to help build cities across this country. And there is this thing called COVID-19. Mr. President, it is real, it is deadly, and you have utterly failed to lead in this crisis of a lifetime. But we will continue getting it done here in the city of Chicago and across the country, because that's what mayors do. We lead. And Mr. President, if you want the privilege of a respectful engagement with the residents of this great city of Chicago, on behalf of whom I have the honor of being mayor, these and other things are the terms of our engagement, nothing less. And one last point that I have to make, and this goes out to our friends in the media. Please stop being enablers of this president and pretending that this man actually wants to be a partner with cities. What's abundantly clear over this last month in particular, there's some obvious dots to connect. As part of his regular rotation of criticisms, he has started attacking and trying to undermine every big city Democratic mayor, especially the women. That's right. It's me. It's Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms of Atlanta, Mayor Bowser of Washington, D.C., and Mayor Jenny Durkin of Seattle. But I got a message for them and for him. And the common theme in these misogynistic and racist rants. The thing you need to remember, Mr. President, we are all tough women. And we're not going to take any stuff from anybody, even if his name starts with Mr. President. I will always honor the office of the president, but please do not ask me to honor this occupant, because I do not. Happy to take your question.
Thank you, Mayor. When you first started, you had, and this is going back to the weekend violence of the last couple weekends, you had what was called Accountability Monday or Accountability Tuesday. What has happened to that? Perhaps you're having it and the media doesn't know. What is going on with those accountability?
Oh, we still have them. We haven't stopped. We have them every Tuesday. We'll have them tomorrow. Look, what I'll say is this. I think what we know is this is an incredibly challenging time all the way around, but also for public safety. We need the ecosystem of public safety to be strong and vibrant. And it's not just, it can't be and isn't just on the police. Now, I still think there's some things that need to be done, and I am in daily conversation with the superintendent about those. I know that he talks on a regular basis to elected officials, to our local aldermen, to other stakeholders. As I said, we have and will continue to have, I think, a great collaboration with the state's attorney, with Chief Judge Evans, with Presiding Judge Martin. But in order to heal what is really manifesting itself in the violence, we need to build and continue to build healthy communities. That's why today's announcement about what we're going to be doing in North Lawndale and here in Auburn Gresham is so important. I spent most of Saturday in two lengthy discussions, one on the west side and one on the south side, about what people were seeing as really motivating the spike in the violence we've seen the last couple of weeks, and what are specific concrete solutions. And what we heard over and over again are a number of things, but one of which is the level of trauma that people are experiencing in our communities, that we need to do a better job of supporting really the whole family unit, certainly our young people, because what is happening, what's manifesting itself every day and every weekend is traumatizing to communities. What we need to do is continue making the kind of investments that today is about. Because if we build healthy communities, if we invest and give our young people hope, and give them jobs, and give them a pipeline to the legitimate economy, we're gonna make a difference. Now, we're not gonna cure that problem in one season. But we have to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to focus on it, listening to our community partners, and building on the foundation that I think is here. But right now, we're in a difficult place. There's no two worries about it.
Bill Cameron is asking, what do you think of the idea of mentoring drug corner juvenile drug sellers on their ride to jail, as was mentioned by the superintendent earlier today?
Well, I think the mentoring's got to start way before they're out there on a corner. And we need to ask ourselves, why are they out on the corner? Why are they choosing that? And part of the reason that they're choosing that is because there's not enough else in their lives and in their community to give them healthy alternatives. One of the things that I have heard over and over again, and we're working on it, is our young people need safe spaces where they can gather. It's the park, sure, but they need community places where they can get healing, where they can get those wraparound services. I don't want to just start after we've arrested them and taken them off the corner. That's a fail. It's too late. We've got to do more to keep them from being on those corners in the first place, being lured by the gangs and the adults who are manipulating them and who don't care and don't love them. We need to do a better job as a city to stop and give them alternatives before they get there. That's why the announcements that we made last Friday about the opportunities that are available across the city for the summer, why we're standing up a youth service corps to get young people involved and helping build solutions for their communities is so important.
Mike Flannery is asking, what's the status of those arrested for curfew violations this month? Are they being prosecuted, or are the charges being dropped in light of opposition from the Illinois ACLU and others? Will the city use a curfew again in similar circumstances?
Well, you know, I don't like to engage in hypotheticals, but obviously if the circumstances warrant it, it's something that we will consider. It's not something, a curfew is not something we ever will or can enter into lightly. As to what the status is, that's really a question that's better left to the state's attorney, but I know that she's looking at all of these cases, and I think that there will be some news around that announced shortly.
I'm trying to find it.
We'll give you two more, Marianne.
There's a question from Univision about General Iron. Do you have
Yeah.
any update on that?
You know,
General Iron.
look, I think that here's the issue about General Iron. There's a couple things that I think are a misnomer. Number one, General Iron is not moving to the southeast side. They've sold their company in what's called an asset sale. So there's a company that's been in that community for several decades that is taking over some of the literally physical assets of General Iron. But I think the larger question is, what are we doing about environmental justice? What are we doing to make sure that we hold these companies accountable? And I think that we've shown, even in one short year, that we don't hesitate to hold companies accountable who are engaging in harm. But I think we have initiated, and we will continue to have a larger conversation around plan developments, around enforcing environmental laws, so that we start to heal some of these communities that have suffered way too long with pollution, bad air quality, and the like.
From A.D. Quigg at Cranes, you've talked about the last in, first out provision for the current FOP contract as a potential snag in scaling down the size of CPD. Will you fight to eliminate that in the next contract, and how seriously are you looking at cutting the department's size to help address the city's budget gap?
So let me just correct a couple of assumptions baked into that question. What I said is that literally the consequences of defunding the police, when we got 94% of that budget as personnel, it means cutting police. And so every time I talk to a local elected official or somebody else, I say, do you literally mean cutting the police? Do you really want to remove police officers from your neighborhood, from your ward? And the answer always is, no, that's not what I meant, Mayor, because I can make that happen. We can remove police officers, but in light of what we're seeing, I'm not sure that that's the right strategy or approach. Again, I think what we're really hearing here is we need to make more, better strategic investments to support healthy communities, and I agree with that 100%. So I think that's the conversation that I think is worth having in a time when we're seeing record levels of shootings and homicides across our city. It's a little daunting to be thinking about just slashing police budgets, because the reality of that is cutting personnel, and given that we haven't historically done what we need to around diversity, if we literally did that, that would mean cutting the most junior, the most well-trained, and the most diverse members of the police department.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.